Previewing. Knowing what's coming is a big advantage. Have you ever been to a movie? What do they show you before the film? A preview. Why? So you come back to see more movies. Do they show you the whole movie? No, just enough to make a decision to see it. We will learn 3 previewing strategies: key sentence preview, name and number scan, and novel previewing. Each has special uses. Sometimes they are used in tandem. Key sentence previewing. We're looking for the main idea of a paragraph. Where is it likely to be? In the first sentence. Most writers start by identifying their topic. Then they add facts, opinions, and examples. The first sentence is like a subtitle. Reading that first sentence clues us in to the topic of the paragraph. We're now better prepared to read it. We read as many key sentences as we can remember. That may be as little as 2, or as many as 12 or more. Start off small and work your way up. This technique is used a majority of the time. Most readers agree it's great. Often you don't read the whole sentence. Just read until you get the key thought. Read a number of paragraphs, then go back and read all the text, including the key sentences again. That's a second exposure to important info. Example. Third quarter earnings are expected to be lower due to various factors in the economy, including but not limited to fluctuations in the international exchange rates which result from blah blah blah. So which part would be the nugget that we want? In this case, it's the first 8 words. This paragraph is about lower earnings in the third quarter. For now, that's all we need to know. We would now skip down to the next key sentence in the next paragraph. Name and number scan. This technique is used when there are lots of facts in the material. Using your finger, scan down the page. You're looking for names, places, and numbers. When you come to one, stop for 2 seconds. Either say it aloud or just acknowledge it. Then move on to the next one. Do a page or 2, about as many as you can recall. After that, go back and read all the text. Now you will be curious as to how all those things fit together. A curious brain works better than a bored one. As you read, these words and numbers will begin to make more and more sense to you. Your curiosity will lead you along, keeping your focus. Example. This paragraph, taken from Wikipedia, is about Sir Winston Churchill. We're going to go through it and highlight the various names and numbers and give them a category according to whether they're who, which will go in yellow, what, which will be highlighted in green, when will be in red, and where will be in purple. So let's read along as if we were doing name and number scan. So first we have his full name, Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. So that goes in yellow, just so we can call it out today. If you were really doing this, you would just stop on it. You wouldn't color it or anything. You'd just be pointing at it. And then we have the dates, 30 November 1874 to 24 January 1965. We're going to highlight that for our purposes in red, just to show that that's a when. Was a British politician, that's a what, so we're putting it in green for now. Who was the Prime Minister, that's a what, of the United Kingdom, that's a where. From 1940 to 1945, that's a red. And again from 1951 to 1955, again, that is a when. Widely regarded as one of the greatest wartime leaders, we could look at that, of the 20th century. That's definitely a when. Churchill was also an officer, that's a what, in the British Army, that's a what. And a historian and writer and an artist all get green for what. He's the only British Prime Minister to have won the Nobel Prize in Literature. That's a what? And was the first person to be made an honorary citizen, what, of the United States. A where. So this paragraph is prime for name and number scan because there's so much information. Now we would only, of course, do all this work if it was important to know all these names, dates, and places. If not, we would just read it. But scanning this way gets all the facts in your head, and then when you go back and read, you're more likely to understand it and more likely to remember many of the facts and figures. Novel previewing. When all else fails, novel previewing may work. It's a sampling technique. We simply choose random places on a page and read until we get the meaning. Then we move on and choose another place. We may do 2, 3, or 4 places on a page. You will be surprised at how effective this can be. Why is it called novel previewing? It's what makes sense with dialogue, which you'd find in novels. Name and number scan is useless because you already know their names. Dialogue has no paragraph, so key sentence will not work well either. You may be thinking, why would I want to preview a novel? Wouldn't that ruin it? Maybe. Some technical novels have loads of information. Previewing the first few chapters makes sense. Here's an inescapable truth. Your comprehension will be lower when you do not preview. It's higher when you do. True story. I was teaching a class in London, and there was a woman who heard about what we just said about novel previewing and about whether you want to preview a novel or not, wouldn't that ruin it? And she raised her hand and said, oh, I'd have no problem with that at all. And I asked, well, why is that? And she said, well, when I go to choose a novel, I go to the bookstore and I go to the section I'm interested in, and I look at the covers and titles, and if I see one that catches my interest, I'll take the book down from the shelf and I'll read the last 2 pages. Well, everyone in class was horrified. And someone spoke up and said, why would you do that? Why would you ruin the novel? And her response was, well, if I'm going to spend 2 months with this thing, it damn well better have a good ending. Well, most people still weren't convinced. My response, if you're interested, was that with the skills that she would gain from super reading, it's not going to be 2 months. It might be more like 2 or 3 evenings, and then she'll be finished with the novel because of the speed at which she'd be taking in the information. So your commitment to any particular book is not that great. We're only talking a matter of hours, not days, weeks, and months. Also, previewing, like we said, with technical novels and some novels in the beginning is a good thing because it gives you a really solid grounding of where the book is going. And again, I will stress that the more you preview, the greater will be your comprehension and recall. Novel previewing example. In this example, we will read from 3 random places. We could have done 2 or 4. They could have been anywhere on the page. Just get some space between them. Move to the next page and repeat. Do as many pages as you can recall the gist of what you've read. Then go back and read all the text. Usually we only use 1 preview technique at a time. Sometimes it's best to use 2. If you are ill, tired, or stressed, pairing them up can be beneficial. If the information is very complex or hard to understand and you're not familiar with it, then 2 techniques might work well for you. You might combine key sentence with name and number scan, for instance. Whatever works for that kind of information. In a nutshell, previewing helps you understand what you are about to read. This makes a huge difference in your comprehension and recall. Soon it will increase your speed as well. Your brain gears up for whatever information it knows is coming. Previewing is an essential part of reading. Comprehension is lower without previewing.